Okey-doke. All right, welcome everyone. So glad you all are here. Wonderful. I'm going to pull up the chat, and so please do ask questions at any time. We'll definitely have time at the end for questions, but please, hop in whenever. And we're going to talk about all things networking today. You guys can see my slides. Good. Okay, beautiful. Assuming that's a yes. All right. Super quick, my background, I started out, I was at Goldman Sachs, and then I was at Bridgewater Associates, which is a hedge fund. And from there, I got coaching training through NYU, and I got certified through the International Coach Federation, and have been coaching now formally for 6.5 years, but informally probably 10 or more. And I did a tech MBA at NYU Stern, and I've coached through a variety of organizations in addition to building my own company for now 6.5 years, as I mentioned. So we help all different types of professionals with all different types of career goals and challenges, pretty much anything you can think of. Again, today we're going to focus on networking. Yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Yeah, we are going to talk about why you might network, who you can reach out to, how to reach out, how to run a networking call really, really well, how to follow up and make that an opportunity for yourself, and how to really take those learnings and make use of all of it. And also give you a bit of that process orientation around what this should look like in your week. So going to try to cover this from multiple angles. If we're leaving anything out, just let me know. We can talk about anything if it's not already here. And I know there's a lot of mindset components. There's, the confidence, the comfort with networking. So there's a lot of practical tools here that I think will help you feel more comfortable with networking. But please, if there's anything on your mind that you're nervous about, it's a very common thing. So please do share any and all thoughts and feelings. Okay. So we've got a fun slide here where I'm going to go through like, what is networking? What is it not? And I think this is going to help to frame some of the common myths around networking, right? Okay. So first and foremost, these are conversations, right? You are going to talk to people one-on-one on a 20 to 30-minute phone call, and you're going to learn. You're going to learn from them. They're going to learn from you. And it's authentic, meaning you're actually going to ask questions that are genuine, that you want to know, that you need to know, that are going to help be relevant to your field, your knowledge areas, your expertise, and what's going to help you learn and grow in your profession. It's not just forcing, like, I think I'm supposed to ask this. I think I'm supposed to ask about their journey. I'm not sure what to ask, right? And so if you're not sure, we are going to get into like what exactly to ask, but just to frame, I don't want some people feel like, oh, this is just a thing I have to do. And so it's more than that. We're going to make it meaningful. We're going to make it valuable for both you and the other person, right? These are one-on-one 20 to 30-minute meetings, okay? It's not DMing people on LinkedIn. Emails are a part of it to set up a phone call. Events are fine when you meet large groups of people, but the way I personally define networking is a little narrow. I think about it as that one-on-one conversation. And for the sake of today, that's what I'm going to refer to as networking. Sometimes people will message someone else their questions in like a messenger, or even emailing somebody your questions. I personally think a phone or a video meeting is so much more dynamic, that you're going to really get better help, stronger help, better information. They're going to want to help you, and they're going to get to know you better versus just liaising on email. I know it's not always easy to get people to respond to this, but we'll talk about that. So again, that's kind of how I define networking. Instead of just telling someone, I'd love to pick your brain, you want to actually mention what is it you'd want to learn about from that person. So, being specific, you can mention 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 brief agenda points or topics that you'd want to ask them about. That really shows that you're prepared to use their time wisely. Versus, when you send an outreach message and you're kind of like, I'd love to pick your brain. It doesn't show that you've done your homework. It doesn't show that you're know why you're reaching out to that person. So you really want to kind of go that extra mile, spend 5 or 10 minutes on their LinkedIn, and really think of, here are the things that I think you can actually help me with, right? And that's going to show them that this is worth their time to actually get on the phone and help you. Um, cold outreach to strangers is not off limits, but ideally we're finding connections, we're finding introductions, we're thinking about our network, we're thinking about our alumni network, we're, trying to figure out ways of even just meeting new people. Like you might go to events and you might meet new people that way, but if you've never met somebody before, yes, you can message them on LinkedIn, but try to figure out any and other ways to find people where you might have something in common. It helps that person want to say yes and want to help you, right? Mutually beneficial. We talked a little bit about this, but don't feel like it has to be you only asking for help. You can also offer your knowledge, your resources, your network. You can offer introductions. You could even offer, like if you're job searching, a little pro bono time to help somebody in some area might give you resume building experience and it might help them. There's a lot of different things that you can offer, your knowledge, your experiences, again, your network. So don't feel like it's fully just, I need you, you're a person, you have value to offer as well. Reflecting and preparing before the call is so important. It goes such a long way to spend just 20 minutes saying, what is it I really need to know from this person on this meeting? Don't jump on the call without preparing at all, right? Treat every professional interaction with care and the utmost care. So reflecting and preparing goes such a long way to make sure you get the most out of it. And you're going to impress them, by the way. Like if you have an agenda, if you have questions on your mind, they're going to really see that. And they're going to say, oh, this person's really organized. They're professional. They've spent the time preparing. Like, those little soft skills are really going to show them, oh, yeah, you know what? I would feel comfortable to refer this person because of how they showed up in this meeting. It shows them who you are as a professional. A long-term relationship, right? So it doesn't have to just be the one time you're ever going to talk. It's a relationship. You're going to get to know somebody. Maybe you talk once or twice a year, but it's somebody you can keep in your purview, in your circle. Staying in touch and seeing how you can help each other along the way. I've somehow become a natural networker, but there's people all along my life that are in and out in one way, shape, or form. I have past clients where I'll look at their background and say, oh, I have a current client who could totally meet with you. So like I'm constantly connecting people. So even if you worked with somebody many years ago, really think about people in your life. It's personal, connections or past colleagues or whoever it may be. These are your networking connections, right? So be more open-minded about who these people are, where they are, and these are relationships you can have over the course of your life. Uncover aligned opportunities and figure out how you can help one another. It's not just like, I need this, I have an ask, checking the box transactional. You never know how one can help the other. Knowledge, resources, maybe they know of good networking groups. Maybe they don't have a job, but for you, but they could let you know of different resources or make another introduction for you, and vice versa. So really allow the call itself to reveal the natural next steps, because if it's an authentic call, it will naturally segue into where could we take this and how can I help you and vice versa, right? Ongoing and proactive. And what I mean by that is when you're job searching, you don't only want to do it during job search. You want to think about it, all throughout your life. It doesn't have to be every single day, but if you're not in job search mode, you can think about once a month. Let me find one new relationship to build. Let me meet one new person who's in my target roles, target companies, target industries, somebody that might be helpful to me and me to them. So really think of it proactively if you can. And leveraging your network, right? So sometimes we're like closed-minded with, I don't know anyone, versus let's be unassuming, where, okay, friends, family, acquaintances, a neighbor. I once had a chiropractor introduce me to one of her clients and I ended up interviewing at that firm. Like, that's so random. Like being open to talk to the person who's sitting on the bus seat next to you and, whatever it may be. And, you don't have to necessarily, you know, tell everybody all the time. If you're at a party on a Friday night, you don't have to talk about your job search all the time. But, talk about it for 2 seconds, grab their information and follow up with them on Monday. So you never know where the lead or where the intro is going to come from. So be comfortable to meet anybody and ask anybody. Like, we often assume that we know who our network knows, but your friends, like, you never know if it could be a friend of a friend or your cousin's like neighbor. I mean, sometimes it's so random. I actually did have literally a friend's neighbor ended up working in talent development. This was years ago, and I was networking with them when I was in a job search. So, like, people, right? People are your friend here. Where are people? They're everywhere, and so we have to ask our network to see who they may know, right? So that's part of it. Hopefully this slide is a little bit helpful. I know I'm sort of jumping around, but these are some of the very common things that I see or hear about networking. So I'm going to keep going. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. Okay. What are the goals? So number one is career clarity, right? Clarity and learning is the key to your job search success. You need to know what role and what industry is the best fit for me. Do I deeply understand the path ahead? Do I know that it's a fit? And so it's not about their opinion, but if they're in a role or industry that you're considering, just gather all the information and the facts about how does this thing work, like, well, how does your team function and all these kinds of things, and then you create your own opinion about, okay, based on my background, does that feel strongly aligned? And you can ask stories. How do people break in? All these different types of things. So gather as much data as humanly possible and let that inform your direction and your strategy, right? Assessing your fit. Job search, right? So learning who gets hired, when, how, and with what skills. There's a lot of nuances with who gets hired. So it's like, for example, is this the type of role where they look at other internal employees and do this internal mobility thing? Or do you hire externally? Do you only hire past consultants? Do you hire past MBAs? Do you hire people with whatever specific background? How do people typically pursue this path? What are the building blocks? What are the stepping stones? And what does that look like, right? What skills or education do you look for? What makes a strong resume stand out? Or who were the last 3 people on your team and tell me what they had in common, right? So get the stories, get the facts, get the receipts, as they say, right? And learn about their industry, learn about the company. This is a great way to vet culture, because culture is super underrated. Like, you want to enjoy the people and the vibe where you work. So if you're asking questions, you can really get an objective, honest take on what does it look and feel like to work at this company? Is this even somewhere I want to work? Get your foot in the door. Of course, this is going to help you uncover open roles, where the opportunities are, and of course, getting other introductions. It can also help you learn about potential upskilling opportunities. You want to make sure any sort of learning opportunity, is it reputable? Is it worth my time? Courses, certifications, diplomas, boot camps, grad degree, whatever it may be, you really want to make sure, is this upskilling effort, make a difference? Does it make a dent based on my direction, right? Personal branding, people may have feedback for you on that. Building mentor relationships, getting suggestions on resources, and of course, you can share your help with them. So this is just a few. I'm sure there's many more goals or purposes around networking, but this is just a few that can help it feel more like what am I doing on this call? Why am I doing this? What can I gain out of this? What can they gain out of it? So hopefully this is helpful. Again, please feel free to throw questions in the chat. I'm going to keep breezing forward, but reactions, if something makes sense, if something doesn't, if you're, resonating, please do let me know. Okay. Who can you talk to, right? We talked about this a little. Family, friends, acquaintances, past colleagues, social organizations, anything you've ever been a member of, a club, a hobby, a softball group, a wine club, a book club, a gym, anything you've ever done. And of course, the mutual connections. So LinkedIn is such an amazing research tool. If you type in a job title, if you type in a company, it's going to show you, oh, I know somebody, they know somebody. And I'm happy to share my screen. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you how to do that. And of course, you can find your alumni network. So if you don't know how to do that, let's see if this works. If I open this up, you guys can still see, right? I'll just show you quickly You can go to whatever school it is that you attended, and then you go right here to alumni. And so say I'm searching for like HR, whatever it may be, you can type in anything. You could type in a job title, a company, and you can even use these filters. So if you're not already familiar, find your alumni networks, and then you scroll down and all these people are here. And then I would, click into their profile and message them and say, hey, we both went to NYU. It builds that relationship. So that's one of many ways to find new people. And of course, there's cold connections, people that you don't already know in target roles, industries, and companies, and recruiters. If you don't know these people, it's okay. I would say still try to leverage warm connections and build relationships as much as you can. But a cold connection, somebody still may want to help you. If your outreach is really prepared, thoughtful, and specific, people will resonate with that. But be open-minded, be comfortable to share. And again, even if you're in a social setting or at a big event, grab a business card, grab an email address, grab their LinkedIn profile, and follow up later. You don't have to use that time when you're in person necessarily to do the entire agenda of what you have on your, radar, but you can just meet them and get their contact info for later. And there's probably more categories of people that we can think of. But just be expansive, be scrappy, be open-minded, use LinkedIn as a research tool, and really see who can I find where. And that's the other piece. I actually didn't even necessarily make a slide for this. Whoops. But I would also think about not just the who, but the where. So LinkedIn is just one place, right? Tech Ladies has a community. You can think about any other community, a Slack group, any other networking group, any other industry-based association. There's a lot of like digital groups and discussion boards, right? Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups. So thinking about where can I find people in my target roles, in my target industries, or even demographically, like a local New York City group or whatever it may be, or even how you identify, you may find people that way too. There's a ton of female groups. There's so many different types of groups. So even it could be once a week, once a month. Let me find a new resource. Let me find a new group to leverage, right, where I can expand my network. So don't just think about the who, think about the where and different platforms to open up yourself to new groups as well. So outreach, right? Where should you reach out? I personally prefer email over LinkedIn Messenger. I would try to find their email address. Or if you leverage your network, you can say to somebody, here's who I'm looking to meet. Do you know anyone you could make an intro to? Or I use hunter.io. It's a little scrappy. You can find people's email address. I know not everybody's super comfortable with doing that, but I personally think email is that professional means of communication where people are expected to respond. You can definitely try LinkedIn. You can send a connection request. Sometimes it gets saturated in there. So just get a little creative with where you can reach out as well. Another resource I love is Alpha. And you can DM. Sometimes these communities, you can actually just send a message in the community itself. So that's another place. You don't want your message to be lost. Like if someone doesn't log into LinkedIn, you don't want to send messages that no one's going to see. How to reach out. What should you say in your outreach? Be clear, be specific, be authentic, be concise. Add context, right? It's great to show like, I'm debating my next steps, or I'm looking into my next direction, or I'm exploring my next chapter. Like, let them in on your life, and people will resonate with the fact that they're a part of your journey and you're taking this seriously and you're making very big decisions. And you could say I'm spending a few weeks to really research and meet people and figure out where I want to go. Like people respect that. And then of course you can, what I would call scenario one is asking somebody for an introduction. So mention the actual role titles or industries of who you want intros to. So be specific. I'm looking for introductions to HR managers, HR operations, talent development, and recruiting professionals. I just made that up, but like be really specific. And what's the call to action? I'm looking to host informational chats. I'm looking to build my network. Do you have anybody you can, facilitate an intro to? I would love and appreciate anyone you can think of, right? Great. Scenario two, what if you're asking somebody directly for a phone call? Remember, you're mentioning topic areas. I'd love to ask you about A, B, C, D, and E. right? It's not just like, I'd love to learn from you. It's not like, I'd love to pick your brain. How can I be specific, right? Show that you're prepared. Be wary of being too specific. This is the catch where you don't want to list the full question because then they're just going to want to answer via email. But you can say something like, I'd love to understand, the difference between product marketing and product manager, as well as, future career paths where you can take this role in the future, how people typically break in, and some of your key day-to-day projects and technical tools that you're using. Great. Wow, there's an agenda. You know what I mean, right? So it's topics. It's not full-blown questions. And then of course, call to action. You would be clear. Do you have any time in the next week or two? I'd love to spend 15, 20 minutes on the phone or Zoom. I'd love to ask you some questions. Do you have any time to spare? Would so appreciate anything you can offer. So be clear in the end, okay? Running the call. So let them know you have that agenda. And it's interesting because you're going to have an agenda prepared with questions, but you're going to also be in the moment. So if they mention something, you can follow up, you can dig deeper, but you can also refer to your agenda when you need it, right? Leverage their vantage point. You may realize the person that sits next to them or the adjacent team or maybe an external vendor or consultant or agency is actually the place you want to be. So it's not just their day-to-day, it's understanding their world and then being honest about, here's my skills, here's my interests, what's your world all about? And then you're going to realize by the end of each call, there's going to be a natural next step. If they get to know you and you get to know them, they're going to naturally be like, oh, wow, sounds like your interests are relevant to this. I should introduce you to so-and-so, right? And of course, always follow up. However it left off, whatever they offered, reiterate that in your follow-up email, but try to have that wrap-up moment at the end of the call. So really figure out, how can we help each other? Like, don't wait for the email to ask that. Just do that at the end. For career exploration, ask very specific creative questions. You want to learn deeply about what these roles and industries are all about. I have actually a downloadable list on my website. I could send you guys a list of 50 questions, guys and gals. I can send you a list of questions, with what can you ask, and how you phrase it is really underratedly important because that's how they're going to hear it and that's what they're going to answer. So spend time. You don't have to go crazy with the wordsmithing, but really think about, what am I trying to ask, and actually spend time with that. For job search, again, preparing specific questions, learning the patterns of who gets hired, learning the reality of their culture, the company culture, learn about their industry. Most of the call is learning. The wrap up is the last few minutes, right? You can mention, I'm actively exploring open roles, see if there's any movement or opportunities on their team, and just try to have that one call lead to another call. Who else can they introduce you to? And of course, if there is an open role, you could say, would you be willing to introduce me to a hiring manager or a recruiter? I'd love to learn more about what they're looking for. See if they're willing to do that. If there's no open role, you can still say, is there anyone else in marketing that you think would make sense for me to talk to? I'm looking to build my relationships, build my network, right? All makes sense so far? Thoughts, questions? I'll take a pause. We feeling good? Please do share if there's anything you want me to touch on. I'm happy to go in any direction here, but we'll have time for lots of Q&A as well. When you're preparing, so of course, reference any research you've already done, any reflections, any questions you already had on your radar. I'll give you, that list of suggested networking questions as well. You can consider, of course, asking about their background, their company, the role, the industry, the recruiting process, as well as training and skill development opportunities. This is just some ideas for the broad buckets of the areas that you can think about. Read through the company website, take notes, jot down questions that arise, and at least write down 10 to 15 questions in priority order, and just give yourself at least 20, 30 minutes to prep. You don't need more than an hour. I mean, an hour is more than enough. Truthfully, I would just say bare minimum 10, 15, 20 minutes. Just make sure you prepared a little bit. It's going to go a long way. These are some example questions. I can grab you guys that downloadable link of different questions, but these are just some of the ones that I like, right? So here's what I think this role is. How do you define the role? That's a great way, if you're learning about any new roles, to just figure out your gap in your knowledge, if there is a gap, or if you're understanding it correctly. Ask yourself what you're concerned about. Do you have hesitations? Use your reflections and your feelings to actually come up with questions. This is one of my favorites. If your role was a pie chart, how would you split up the pieces of the pie? Get the breakdown of the time instead of saying, what's your day to day, right? So, thinking about the week as a pie chart is a great way to understand a role. Saying something like, here's what I love doing. Which roles do you feel best align with that? Or which teams do you think best align with that in your organization? If you're debating different roles, ask how they see the difference between those roles. Future career paths of where this role can lead. What are the skills that people need to break into the role? What do you look for when hiring? Any upskilling programs that are worthwhile? Walking me through an example project. So instead of like an example day in the life, tell me about a project life cycle and how you plug in from start to finish. Great way to understand what they do. Company culture, instead of saying like, what is your company culture? Think about what do you want in a culture and actually ask a specific question. So for example, tell me about how your team handles like, when there's a new idea, somebody has a suggestion or a process improvement, what happens? That story is going to tell you, are they open to new ideas? Do they empower people to run with initiatives? Or does it all just go in the backlog and no one's listening to their ideas, right? So you want to ask, how do they handle things? Tell me about a time. And that's going to tell you about the culture versus what's the culture? And any trends or patterns across the industry. You can ask how that role differs across industries, how it differs across companies. There's so many different things you can ask, but just make that time useful for you, whatever the gaps are in your own knowledge, whatever's going to help you. Sometimes we already understand the role. You can still ask them, how does this all function within your company, right? How did they operate? You can always get to know that. And you can always get to know technological advancements, how are they using AI, like any advancements or trends, you can always, have something to learn. So figure out what you need to learn and go from there. After the call, what interested you, what didn't interest you, how interested are you in the role, and what are your next steps? Ideally, we at least learn one major thing from every single phone call. And just think about like, on a weekly basis, what's going well, what didn't go well, what did I learn, what are my target roles and industries, and how can I improve for the following week? Again, this depends on what you're networking to do, whether it's for job search or other reasons, but just synthesizing across your networking calls to see, how is that informing your approach, your path, all that good stuff. And if you are in job search, you can think about the quantitative, how much outreach am I doing? How many calls am I having? And am I stuck in the funnel, right? Am I doing outreach but not getting responses? Am I having calls but no interviews? Where you're maybe seeing patterns is going to help you to figure out where you need improvement. Overall process, right? So pick your focus. Who do you want to talk to, right? Like either finding companies where you've applied or finding people at target organizations, even if there is not an open role, or just finding people in your target roles and industries, right? So who are you looking to learn from? Then figure out, okay, literally like, so the first thing is like, what am I looking to learn about? Then it's who is going to help me, right? So researching on LinkedIn, seeing those mutual connections, obviously drafting the outreach, trying to find their information, prepare, have those calls, and reflect. That's like a very quick synthesis of like, what are you doing in a given week? What is that process? And by the way, follow-ups, they may not answer right away. It's okay to follow up once or twice, space it out, give them a little time. Sometimes people really do answer that second follow-up. Job search, if you are in the job search mode, I like to think about it like a funnel. So networking is at the top. This is what helps you get in front of people. This is what helps you identify open jobs. You meet people, they meet you, they see how great you are, they get to know you. And then ideally that's what leads to the first round screenings. And then that's how you, of course, start to move through the next few interview rounds. If you're seeing that you're getting stuck in interviews, you might need more mock interviews. But if you see that you're not landing the first round, it might mean we need to think about the top of funnel. So this is just a quick way to think about job search funnel and where does networking plug into the process, right? Yes, networking for introverts. That is a great question. I'm happy to move to Q&A. And just so you guys know, this is very much what we do. So please do, keep note of our website has a bunch of free resources on it, and we always offer a free initial chat as well. Yes, great question, Sophie. I actually have a blog on this for introverts. I think for introverts, thinking about this, you don't want to think about it like transactionally, but I personally find, and I would say deep down, I'm an introvert as well, even though I know maybe I seem extroverted, but I think with introverts, making it feel like a process to me makes it a little more comfortable. Again, you're not taking the human out of it, but you're saying to yourself, okay, like LinkedIn, that's a research step. Email drafting, that's just a communication step. You're not even reaching out just yet. If you're nervous, do that research, draft an email, and you could send it to a peer, a mentor, a coach, somebody where you're like, let me just see how this sounds. Like, so build in the baby steps for yourself that happen before you even run the call. You can also do practice calls. You can practice out loud how you're going to say certain things. And I actually have a pre-networking meditation. So you can even think about things like that. And I would just think about what might be holding you back, if anything. Like sometimes people are like, nervous to ask for help or nervous of like, what can I offer? So I would really try to get to the root of, where are you hesitating? And is that something I can work on? Like talking with a coach, talking with a mentor or a peer around, what am I feeling in this process? And what does that mean? I've had full-blown coaching conversations where we're talking about your mindset, your comfort with networking. And sometimes this is like deeply from your upbringing, like how does your view on asking for help influence your career? Like this might have been deeply ingrained, right? So you never know where the feelings come from, really, but digging deeper to understand it, alleviate it, and build some new approaches, build some new habits, build a little scrappiness, a little vulnerability, a little resourcefulness. It's building new traits a little bit and stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit, right? Or just practicing, like ask a friend or somebody you're really comfortable with at work or any previous colleague or whoever it may be, and just run a practice call with them, like someone who's really comfortable for you, as a first step. Or if you do have a coach, mentor, peer, again, practicing out loud. How would I run this call? How would I send this email? Right? Doing a practice run, like share your screen, show your LinkedIn, figure out how would I do that research. But it really depends on which element is tripping you up the most as an introvert, and just trying to unravel that a little bit. I hope that helps. And let me know if I'm missing anything. I'm just sort of spitballing here, but if there's something I didn't touch on, please let me know. Anyone else? Thoughts, questions? I'm an open book. We can talk about anything. I mean, networking is fair game, but if you have thoughts on, clarifying your direction, branding, upskilling, pivoting, job search, you name it, happy to use our time however it would be helpful to you all in the room. Feel free to unmute or use the chat if there's any questions at all. I mean, oh great, Sophie, so is there a way to keep track of all the people you network with? Yes. Honestly, a Google Sheet or Excel works great. I have a little bit of my own tools through Woken. I feel like, there's definitely a bunch of things out there that other people have used. But honestly, with trackers, like I would just keep it simple. But I would keep in mind that underratedly your tracker influences your process. So I'm big on visual tools, like for example, if you have some spreadsheet and the columns say, okay, where did I apply to this job, you're just going to be doing applications. But if you're like, where did I apply? And then who did I reach out to? And did I have a networking call? And did I follow up? And all this good stuff. Each column is actually going to influence, the steps of your process. So I would actually take good care with your operational system and, where you track. It can be a simple tool, but I would make sure that the steps and what you're tracking are best practices, right, to influence your process. I'll even flesh out like, do I know anyone at that company? Do I know someone who knows somebody? Let me look for a mutual connection. Another column for alumni. Or did I reach out to a recruiter? Or did I reach out to somebody on the team that I'm looking to join? Or, whatever other categories, right? So I'll even put columns for each of those things. So use the tool to remind yourself what you need to be doing. But I do think a simple tool is fine. I would say with any project management or like operations, keep it easy to customize in the way that you need. Like, how do I easily stay organized and see the key information? And the great thing about a Google Sheet is you can also like sort and filter, right? So if you're like date for follow-ups, you want to figure out like, okay, I last reached out last week, I'm ready for a follow-up on May 29th. You can sort by date, you can sort by all the, status, requires a follow-up, or, whatever columns you need. So I would just kind of, as you learn and do networking, like build out your tracker in a way that serves you and helps remind you of things and makes your life easier pretty much, right? Yeah, I hope that helps. How many people at a single company should I reach out to, try to talk to? So look, I would say at a single company, it's not bad to reach out to multiple people. I would just be a little careful if it's a small team. Say it's a team of 4, like you're not going to bombard all 4 people. But trying to find like someone on the functional team and someone on the recruiting team, right? Like a hiring manager or somebody in a similar role to what you're looking to join, and then somebody on a recruiting team. Great. You're building a campaign for yourself. So I think landing at least 1 or 2 phone calls with someone at a company is great. If it's a massive company like a Google or something, and you think there's multiple teams of interest, as long as it's a person on those different teams or different departments, it's fine. You just want to be wary if it's a small organization and a small team, you don't need to message every single person on a 5-person team. So just try to have that reasonable balance so you're not bombarding people, but it is okay to build a campaign for yourself. Is it best to talk to hiring manager or a more colleague level? That's a great point. I didn't put this in the slides. I like to reach out to people within 5 years of your tenure. If somebody is too senior, they just may not have time. And so it could be at your level, it could be just below, or it could be just above. If you find a hiring manager, great. If you find a recruiter, great. Or if you find someone at or around your level, that's perfect. Another slide I guess I could have put in there, right? So if you're not seeing responses, the things I would think about is, where did I reach out, right? Because if it's all LinkedIn DMs, right, I would really try to make sure you have some emails or other messaging systems. I would think about seniority of the person. Are they too senior? I would think about your language of like, am I talking about exploring my career or am I talking about job search? Personally, I don't even like to mention the words job search in the email itself. And then fourthly is who I reach out to, how warm is the connection? So is it all cold outreach to strangers, or do I know people or have something in common? So those are the rules of thumb around, am I getting responses, and which of these ingredients can I adjust to get more responses? Thoughts, questions? What else can I help with? How many people per week should we reach out to? So that depends on how much time you have, right? And it depends on your pace. It depends on how, no, this is great, Sophie. Thank you. It depends on how much time you have. It depends on your pace of how quickly you're looking to move. For example, if you're job searching and you have all day, this is your number 1 priority. You could spend an hour or 2 a day with like researching people, reaching out to people, and eventually your time will be filled with actually having the calls. So I like to think about, for example, say you want 2 or 3 calls a week, I would do double the amount of outreach. So I would do like 3 to 6 outreaches. If you want more calls, again, you just do the math and you would just probably 2x the number of outreach. But again, if you have like all week and you're not working, I would love to see at least 3 to 5 calls a week, could be more, it just totally depends. If you're like, I'm doing this on the side of a full-time job, maybe you aim for 1 call a week or 1 call a month. It's up to your pace of how fast am I looking to move, depending on whatever your goal is. Like, are you job searching or what is it you're working on? The more the better, but you want to balance the quality too, right? Don't just only think about volume. You want to make sure it's like the right people as well, right? Such great advice. Cool. Awesome. Great. Wonderful. Would you recommend to meet in person? Great question. So honestly, I think it's a bigger ask for somebody to meet in person. I like to offer first, would you be willing to do a phone or Zoom? If you build such great rapport and they want to meet up and they offer a coffee chat, great. I might start with virtual to make it convenient for them because the time and the travel involved to meet up with somebody, like that's taking more time out of their day. But if it's a strong connection and they know you through a friend and they're more than willing to do it or whatever it may be, sure, if they offer that, you can take them up on that. But for most outreach, I probably don't lead with that unless the person really does offer it, right? To follow up with this, how would navigate in-person networking events, tips or tricks? Yeah. So Jenna, be in the moment, be at the event, be yourself, be, present, ask questions, introduce yourself, meet people. Like, I don't want you to think about any distracting agendas. That's kind of why I usually just say, like, grab the business card, grab the email address, grab the LinkedIn profile before they walk away. As long as you get their contact info, you can always follow up later. But if you're present in the moment, you're naturally going to just say, like, what do you do? And where do you work? And you're going to get to know them and you're going to think of questions naturally. Like, say they tell you about their team, like, ask about whatever's interesting to you. Let them know about who you are. Just like being genuine and making a good connection and being in the moment and talking about whatever topics are relevant to you. That's going to be the best way to build a relationship. And then just make sure to grab their information. And after the event, try to set up that 20 to 30-minute one-on-one meeting. That's when you can really like have your time and have your agenda. But when it's such a busy event, you kind of just need to be in the moment because some people you'll talk to for 5 minutes, some people you'll talk to for 20 minutes. Like, it just depends on where you are in that event. So I would just try to be present, see who you meet with. If you can look up an attendee list beforehand, great. But just grab that contact info. And that's the key there. And yeah, picking which talks, which sessions do I want to attend the most? Obviously doing a little bit of your prep, who's going to attend. Yeah, that's what I would think about with events. When it comes to connecting or emailing, when is the best time of day? Do you mean like when is the best time of day to email or when is the best time of day to like try to set up a call? If you're talking about when to email, I think anytime, during the week or the weekend. I mean, you can offer because everybody's different. So if you're talking about what time of week or what time of day to email someone, anytime I would say from the morning through like I think before end of day. Like I probably wouldn't send an email after like 5 p.m. On a weekday just because people log off and want to go live their life. I personally probably wouldn't send networking outreach on a weekend, but it's not an exact science because some people might be more free and check their email on a Sunday and they may be more willing to do a mentor call on a Sunday. So everybody's a little different, but I think outreach should be like midday, midweek. Again, it's not a perfect science because sometimes midday somebody's busy at work and they may not see it. So like you could make the argument for like, look, if I email somebody at 7 p.m., they're home, they can actually respond. So again, there's no like perfect science. And then in terms of when to set up the call, I would ask them like what works best for you. And if they prefer an evening or a weekend, that's their choice, but you can say I'm flexible, like what works best for you. Yes, send later. I love the schedule tool. Exactly. Yeah. So if you are trying to do work over the weekend, you could schedule an email to go out Monday or whenever it is. Absolutely. Kelly, thank you. Yeah. And then like Fridays also, like by Friday afternoon, I'm like I don't think anybody wants an email. But that's just me, like I would think about the psychology of like what you would use in your everyday job of like how you think about people, but sometimes there's a little bit of a different way to think about networking because sometimes somebody's busy during the day. So it's not a perfect science. Um, is there a good time to schedule an email? Again, no perfect science here. Personally, I it's so tough, right? Because everybody's different. Like, I could see the argument for 8 a.m. because like people are already checking their emails in the morning and they're responding and they're in the midst of that. I could see an argument where it's like, look, they're busy. They may miss that because they're starting work and whatever, right? So, like, for me, I'm usually sending emails, between Monday and Friday from like maybe 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m., give or take. I personally think like within the working hours is the right time because that's when somebody's at their computer doing work, answering emails anyway. But that's just me. And so, Sophie, I don't think there's like an exact science. I know there's a lot of like research in terms of like marketing, like email marketing, like when should we send out emails that people will open? You could try to research this, but I think as long as you're just generally being respectful and you can A/B test it. You could be like, whenever I do this, it doesn't work, or whenever I try this, you can test out subject lines, you can test out email language. Like this is all a bit of an experiment to see, what works best, what drives results. That's what I would think about, with job search and networking. It's like any project. You're measuring and testing and seeing what works. Calendly, yes. Questions to ask in the Calendly. Ask, you can ask their phone number, right? So that you can call them. You could ask for maybe their LinkedIn profile, but I'm sure by that point you already have it. You could ask their time zone, if you just want to be wary of that. Other than that, Calendly will give you like it will probably ask, their name, their email address, have them book a time. I honestly wouldn't ask too many questions in the Calendly to make it too hard for them to book, but you definitely, if folks in the group aren't aware, Calendly just helps you show your availability and have somebody book a time with you. You can use that. So you could say like, feel free to book a time with me, feel free to pick a time here. And that tool will make it easier for them to find a time when you're free. But you can also say, if you have a Calendly link of your own, please do feel free to share because just in case they don't see a good time on your link, you just want to show that you're being flexible to their schedule as well. But Sophie, I probably wouldn't ask like too many questions. You don't want to make it too hard on them. If that makes sense. Any other thoughts, questions? Everyone feeling good? Yeah. What's the appropriate way to follow up? Yes. If somebody doesn't respond, I like to paraphrase, right? So don't just say, like, oh, did you see my previous email? Like, try to reiterate the point in other words. I would probably wait a week at least, to follow up. And yeah, just be polite and just say, like, not sure if you saw my previous message. I'd love to learn from you and ask you about A, B, C, and D. Just be grateful. Just say, I'd so appreciate any time you can spare in the next week or two. Show again when you've done your homework and your email is robust enough and specific enough and prepared enough and thoughtful enough, people will resonate with that. So taking the extra time on your outreach is what's going to drive those responses. Plus, you're thinking about who are the warm connections. If it's all cold outreach. So, yes, you can follow up, but I would really think about if I'm not seeing responses, what is maybe the reason for that? But that's kind of how I think about the follow-ups. It's a lot of this is similar to kind of how you would do it at work. Like, how would you follow up with somebody if they didn't answer and you were, getting them to do something for you at work? You'd have to be, politely reminding them, but you still be professional. You'd probably remind them of the context of why you reached out in the first place, right? You don't need to make them do the hard work of saying, see previous email. You can actually just reiterate your message in different words. And in this case, just show extra gratitude because, they're going to offer their time, for you. So any other questions? I'll come back on here. Oh, here we go.
Rachel, thank you so much. I love being able to listen to your things. I feel like I always like squirrel away little tips for myself too. Um, so one thing before I let you all go that really resonated with me was when you were talking about the outreach, how to be sort of authentic and essentially a little bit vulnerable, right? Like where you're at, like what specifically you're asking for. Because I feel like we often have the tendency, to not want to admit when something is like challenging for us, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at it from the perspective of the person that you're reaching out for, or if you have ever been in the shoes of someone that has been on the receiving end of like an informational interview request, oftentimes people want to help. So I found myself like really excited if someone like legitimately needs help and is specific enough in their request that I know I can help them.
Yeah.
I'm much more likely to reach out. So I don't know. I just wanted to emphasize that because that really resonated with me. And just the idea that, I mean, people want to help
They
us.
really do. I always say this is how the world goes round, right? Like someone's going to help you, you're going to help someone else, and the person you're asking, they had someone else help them, and it's absolutely a round robin. And how do we do anything in this world? We help each other. How does anything happen, So, look, not every single person is going to answer, not every single person is going to help. With job search, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the world. You're going to have people who don't answer. You're going to have people who say, I don't have time. You're going to have people who say, I'm more than happy to help. And they spend an hour with you. You're going to have people that give you all these resources or introductions. And you're going to have people that are confused and don't even know what you're asking. And they think you're asking for a job when you're really asking for something else. You're going to see every reaction under the sun. And so it's going to help you be stronger at how do I strengthen my own message? How do I go about this? But I would just expect it all. And then, all you can do is control your time, your approach, and your efforts, and just, remember that. So,
Oh my gosh, such a good point. And I always think too, we don't always know why people aren't responding. So I think all of your points are fair to like control what you can control, adjust who you reach out to, cold versus warm. But I mean, I even know like when I went on maternity leave, I wasn't checking LinkedIn and I came back to messages that were old. And, I imagine it would be easy to take it personally or to think there are different reasons, but sometimes people don't respond for their own personal reasons. Sometimes they're busy. Maybe they're a jerk who doesn't want to help anyone, but the reality is probably not. And it probably has less to do with you. So being able to not take it personally and to move on and control what you can control, I think is so important. I
yeah,
love
absolutely.
it.
Well, yeah, definitely connect, folks. I'll send my LinkedIn, but please reach out if you have follow-up questions. And yeah, hopefully we'll be back, with Tech Ladies. We'll do some more stuff and get you guys even more helpful workshops. But please do, connect with me. I hope this was helpful. Reach out, let me know how you're doing, let me know how I can help. And hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, well, perfect. Everyone, thank you for your engagement and your questions. It's always so lovely. And thank you, Rachel, for your time. We'll send up a follow-up email with more, just like links to make sure you can get connected with Rachel, with Woken, also a recording of this event if you want to go back and review anything. And we'll stay in touch.
All
Okay.
righty.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye.